Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Firefly, Episode 8. This is Out of Gas. So, full spoilers for the episode, of course, as always. We should thank our sponsors. We have two sponsors for Patreon who sponsor this series of Firefly reviews specifically. We have Keith Beard and Margaret Newland, so thank you to both of them. And if Connor's wondering why I spent an extra 30 seconds...
No, I just realised, yeah.
What do you think I was checking?
I was getting those names up.
Oh, no, I knew the names. I've got a post-it on my screen for the names the whole time.
Oh, okay.
No, I couldn't remember what number the episode was supposed to be because Firefly has different orders, so I never associate numbers with the episode. So I'm like, oh, what number is it? I guess I don't know.
Yeah. No, for anyone wondering what this is about, before we start recording, Peter's account, just a few seconds of silence, 3 or 4 seconds, so it's clear for him. And it went on, and he just stopped and just didn't start for a good 30 seconds.
I was just checking our own playlist to see what number we were. That's all I was doing. So Out of Gas, I said pretty, confidently last episode that this is my favourite of the show. It's an episode, of course. Well, I'll get to that side. But it's an episode, of course, about the ship having a malfunction, and they're dead in the water, essentially, out in space. And it's about kind of how some of the crew came to the ship. Not the characters, obviously, who were introduced in the pilot, but all the ones who were already on the ship. We get flashbacks for all of them. And it's a story about Mal and his character, and about how the ship kind of represents his character. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, I mean, before I say if it still holds up for me in that sense, I mean, how do you agree with me? At least so far, assuming you don't remember the rest as well.
It's up there, yeah. It might be the best so far.
Okay. I think it does hold up for me. I think my opinion is going to be the same by the time we get to the end of this. This episode is a 10 out of 10. It is immaculate from start to finish. I will not accept any criticisms of any kind. I'm warning you now, because this is a perfect 42 minutes of television.
And I wish I had watched this more recently than when we had, because we had planned to record this a little bit earlier, so I had watched it ready, and then delays happened. I got ill.
Yeah, and that's why there's been a couple of weeks since the last episode. Connor was ill for like a week and a half. Yeah,
I was ill, and then I cracked my tooth. It was a whole thing. So I wish I could remember some small minutiae just now, just to nitpick and complain about, just to annoy you. But I can't.
You can't, because it's a perfect episode.
Something might come to me as we go through. So you might say something. I'll jog my memory.
And what's interesting about this though is that it's not a Whedon episode. Usually in Whedon shows, the best episodes are almost always Whedon episodes, and probably just because it's like only got 14. But this is actually, I believe, a Tim Minear episode. Let me just confirm that. I don't want to give you false information. But
yeah, how dare you?
I know, how dare I? But like, it's not a Whedon episode, and that's kind of notable. And it's part of what makes Firefly such an exciting show, despite how short it is that even the episodes that weren't directly by Whedon were hitting out bangers like this. No?
I don't disagree. Just, you're really heaping it on here. Yeah, other people are capable of writing good episodes.
Oh, they are. I love tons of episodes of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer that were written by Whedon, Angel too. But most of the best episodes that people tend to bring up tend to be Whedon episodes, not just on a personal level. You bring up The Hush, The Body, you bring up episodes like that. They're all Whedon episodes.
Sure.
Yeah. So no. Yes. Let's get into it. Let's get into this. Out of Gas. Are you ready? Are you prepared?
Yep. Yes. I've got my drink at the ready.
So the episode opens with just a nice montage going around the ship, the empty ship, with very sad music playing. One of the things that I want to mention here, and I'll probably point out once or twice at the specific moments that I think is at its like most prominent, but I think this episode also has the best score out of the whole show.
I don't know about
that. Okay.
Like it's good.
But great.
I don't think it's got. I mean, even going back to the pilot, I think it had more variety in its music. That showcased a bit more. Whereas this is very good music, but it's all on the same couple of themes.
Yeah. Which I don't have a problem with, because for me it's a very focused episode. So
it's not a problem in the episode, as it all works and it's very good. But I don't think I could say it's the best music of the whole show. It might be the best, like it might have the best tracks individually.
Sure.
But as an episode, I think that there are episodes with more versatility, with tracks that are almost as good.
I think that's a weird sort of barometer almost to sort of judge it by, in a sense, because it's a TV show, so inherently there's going to be episodes that are more one thing or the other, right? So in this case, it's this more dramatic, sad kind of story of loss and, like, you know, finding yourself again. But the pilot, by its nature, because it's sort of evenly introducing so many characters and things, that of course there's ups and downs. There's
like things like that had some great, great tension music, great character music, great, it had the western pieces, it had the action bit, it had so many top form pieces that overall it's probably better than these pieces that are phenomenal at what they're doing.
I don't think even in a movie though I would judge score on variety, bizarrely. Like, I mean, even some of my favorite scores tend to have maybe just, like, take Halloween for example. That has like 3 or 4 pieces that are just used, repeatedly at various points. Maybe with some slight variations, but like,
and they're all, and it's very good.
They're all exceptional.
They are, absolutely.
So I don't know. I think it's just, even if it's not that varied, is it right for the context of what it's doing? And I think something like, like a Halloween, where yes, just the 2 or 3 piano pieces are actually perfect for what the movie's achieving.
It is. I think I give extra credit when you'll have a variety of styles, tones, pieces that are still contextually, what they're supposed to be doing, and are all equally as good as each other, but are so different. That's, to me, is slightly more impressive than just doing the one thing as well as, as you could in those other episodes as well.
Yeah, like RoboCop 3, I agree. So
I do know how to seriously respond to that.
I just try to think of the most random weird movie I could say. RoboCop 3 is just what came in my head.
That's what you came to.
Yeah, that's what I came to. I was trying to think of something that had a really bad soundtrack, and I couldn't necessarily. I don't think of like things in that way where I'm like the 10 worst soundtracks in my head. I don't have that ready to go. Yeah. So I just had to think of a random movie. I was going to say RoboCop. RoboCop 1 has like a phenomenal underrated score, so I was never going to pick that.
I just wasn't expecting you to just come out with the RoboCop 3.
So it's an empty ship, and eventually Mal falls to the floor, the grating, in the main sort of cargo area.
Oh god, we're still on the intro.
We're still on the intro. Yeah.
We're still on the opening shot, and we're 8.5 minutes in.
No, there's several shots of empty areas first, and then it's him falling in.
Fine.
And we go to our first flashback. Flashback number 1. I numbered them as I went, so we've got these.
Your notes are so detailed this episode, aren't they?
I will reveal this is easily the longest I've went on my notes, because usually I go just over a page at this A4 paper. I'm about 2/3 down the second page on this one, so brace yourselves. I need that gif for the Mr. Bean movie where he says brace yourself to the other dude.
I am braced.
Explain what you just did for the audio people. You can't just...
I did shake the bottle. I didn't think you could hear. I thought you could hear it. It was just bottled booze.
Okay. So we got the first flashback, and it's it makes sense. Who's the first person Mal brought on board? Zoe, his right hand, his second in command. Obviously, it's Zoe. And of course, a lot of the humor in this episode comes mainly from the flashbacks, because the present day stuff is so serious and depressing for the most part. And he's like, hey, I got this ship, and she's like, you paid money for this, sir? Like, really? This?
Yeah.
He's like, and there's a lot of fun little beats here. But again, it's because this is all about Mal's character, and Mal says, don't look at what she is, look at what she can be. And he's like, freedom, And she's like, what? He's like, what's that, sir? He's like, no, what's that, sir? Pointing at something on the ground. He's like, oh, I think something might have been living in here. Just walk around it. Flawless joke there, for the record. But then also another little moment that I really like is, when she's running again, she's going to be this free house through the sky or whatever, and she's like, when she gets running, so not running now then. It's like, no, not so much, no. It's just, and it's in the same room that he's in right now, where he's lying down. It's in the cargo hold.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really noted when we come back to Mal, because there's one shot of him in present day before it goes to the opening titles, is, the camera goes from his face. It's a shot from below the grating, and it goes from his face, it goes down his body until it's in his abdomen, and you can see blood dripping through the grating. And I thought, this whole episode is essentially talking about how the ship and the Mal are kind of one and the same, right? The idea that the ship is a person, it's a living, breathing character, and it kind of represents Mal, or Mal represents it, whatever way you want to look at it. This shot is it literally looks like the ship itself is bleeding because of the way it's shot, where the blood's coming through the grating. Like, it's too dark to see his body, you just see blood dripping from the grate. It's a really symbolic, nice little thing. And it's the opening credits. So my rendition for the episode. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do it.
Just making sure. I wouldn't put it past you.
I actually sung the whole thing on a stream earlier this week, and someone said I should do that at the end of every stream. That should be the outro. Is do the Firefly theme.
I'm not even going to ask.
I was humming a lot of movie themes and they were guessing them. It was a thing. Join me in the week live stream Monday, 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. You can convert the other time zones from there. I'm sure you're familiar with at least one of those. So this is the thing. We actually start with the crew in a happy place. They're in the dining room, cafeteria, the mess hall, whatever you want to call it on the ship.
Mess hall probably is more appropriate.
I feel like they always just say kitchen. I think they always just say kitchen on the show.
I think they do, but I think we're just compartmentalizing the kitchen as the bit where they cook versus the bit where they eat.
Yeah,
it's an open plan kitchen.
Yeah, it makes sense. But they're all laughing and happy. It's the happiest we've seen them as a group maybe since the show started. Shepherd books telling stories of some other pastor or whatever who did something silly, and he's telling. We only hear the tail end of it, but they're all laughing really hard. Yeah. And Kaylee's like, "Oh, Simon, you should tell some stories from your line of work. I'm sure you've got some funny ones." And I just noted down that Jane says, "Yeah, because sick people are hilarious." I enjoyed that delivery. I'll just put that.
It was better than your delivery.
It was better than my delivery, yeah. Well, it's that thick American thing, that hilarious. I can't do it.
No, you can't. So you shouldn't try.
How else am I meant to get across what he did? I'm just making it clear that it doesn't matter if I actually nail it. The point is that the audience get what I'm trying to say.
I'm just saying that at this point, they probably know what Jane sounds like.
No, but this was thicker than normal. This was intentionally added on to make fun of the fact that Simon is a doctor.
All right.
Right? He's intentionally trying to rail him up. And he's trying to tell the story, but of course it's all just a ruse because it's Simon's birthday and they bring him out a cake. And we don't really have any cake ingredients, so it's basically just like a cake-shaped version of what we just had for dinner. But there's some candles.
Basically protein bars.
It's basically a protein cake, yeah. But I think it's very notable here that Mal hitting Jane's hand from the cake because he's going in for it. Well, Simon's still saying his speech. He just says there's a little hit that. No, I think before the dramatic thing happens here, it's just it sets up the mood for the episode where we see them in a really happy place. It's classic storytelling. It's show them at their happiest because we're about to make you feel freaking miserable. We're about to just tear your heart out and be like, yeah, they're all going to be in a really sad place for the rest of the episode. So here they are at their happiest. Nice and simple. But of course, River does
something goes wrong.
Yeah, River predicts it though. River says fire before it happens. So again, we're just reiterating her abilities, her telepath kind of thing. That's even just telepath. This is straight up prediction. Or maybe you could argue that it's not so much a prediction; it's just that she senses the start of the fire elsewhere in the ship.
Yeah, I was going to say you could argue it's just heightened senses, and she can smell a hint of something that no one else can.
Yeah, before it comes. Yeah, so they do this whole thing where they open the big cargo door to get out the flames.
Yeah, suck out all the oxygen.
Yeah, I'm not sure how scientifically accurate the actual visual effect of the flames going out is, but it made for a cool visual. So,
Yeah, I suspect it would just stop burning.
Yeah, rather than this visual effect of the flame forming a tunnel and going out.
Actually, no, I'm gonna. I could be wrong. Okay. I'm gonna defend it on the theory that pressure changes, oxygen is physically sucked out, right? Because that's what's going on. The oxygen is physically getting sucked out of the door.
Yes, but the fire itself isn't the oxygen, though, right? It's.
I think it is the oxygen burning at that stage when it's just in the air.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't really care if it's accurate or not.
I don't know either. It looked alright. Yeah.
So afterwards we get I see the damage where Zoe was the one who got hit by the blast because she kicked I think it was, who did she move out the way? I forget. She moved someone out the way.
River.
I think it was, yeah, you're right. I think it was River. But she's out cold. She's in the infirmary, and Wash is really upset, of course. And Mal's like, "You need to get to the bridge. You need to get to the bridge." And there's a whole drama that plays out where Wash doesn't want to do what Mal's saying, and he has to physically put him up against the wall and really make it clear that he's the captain and say, "No, you have to go and get it sorted. Otherwise, we may be all dead in the war." And there's again another example here of the ship being referred to as a person, kind of, where, well, it's not kind of, it is, she is, but like Kaylee looks at Zoe and says she ain't moving, and then reveals that she's talking about the ship. She's talking about Serenity, and obviously Kaylee said that before. She's referred to the ship as she numerous times.
Well, all ships are she's.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah, but Kaylee, especially in this show, has been doing it left and right.
Yeah,
and I guess it's another example of like another thing where the ship's being compared to a human. Like, at least for us as the audience, because we thought she was talking about Zoe. Sure. It's this idea that the ship's a living thing. So that's really neat, and that gets us to the second flashback during the Wash drama. It all builds up to Washy's introduction onto the ship, where he's got a mustache and he's got a Hawaiian shirt on. He's been interviewed for the role of pilot, and
Zoe doesn't like him.
Yeah, Zoe doesn't like him. He keeps giving Zoe this look, this kind of like sort of like, because when Mal says, "Oh, are you interested in taking the job?" and he just gives Zoe this look and goes, "Might do," just sort of looking at Zoe all. I don't want to say creepy. It's not creepy, but just kind of like, he's clearly into her.
Interested. Yeah.
And as Mal and Zoe are walking away, she's like, "I don't like him, sir." He's like, "What? Why? He's got so many recommendations. He's maybe a great pilot." He's like, I know, but I just don't like him." And I love the idea that she does feel attracted to him, and that's why her initial feeling is of dislike. She's like, "I don't feel comfortable. Like something's not right."
Yeah.
I feel something, therefore I don't like it. Therefore he's suspicious, and I don't like him.
Yeah.
So no, I love how it goes from this really sort of heavy scene where he's like fighting with Mal because he's scared that his wife is dying, to us laughing our asses off because she's like, "I don't like him. I just there's something about him. It's fishy."
And correct me if I'm wrong, and obviously you've got the notes, but I believe it is this scene here where the engineer is revealed to us.
Yes, we're introduced to the genius mechanic, and we see this goofy like surfer dude sort of walk out like, "Genius, hey? No one's ever called me that before," and then just walks off. A little tease for a later scene, but yeah, it's a funny little reveal.
But I remember it being here, and obviously the first thing you watch it, you're like, "Who the hell is this chump?"
Because when he says genius mechanic, for the split second before he says something, you're like, "Oh yeah, Kaylee is a genius mechanic. Yeah, I agree with that."
Yeah, and then you see him, and you're like, "Hang on a second."
Yeah, we come back to Zoe. She has to get the adrenaline shot, which is just a nice little bit of Chekhov's adrenaline, because now Mal knows what that is, because that's relevant for later on. Yeah. And of course, Wash isn't here, and Book's like, maybe we should get our husband down here. It's like, no, it's fine. Like, again, it's like Mal is keeping it very sort of strictly. I don't even know what to say, professional. What would the word be for, like on an actual ship, like on a military ship, when there's a captain and he's keeping things like from getting out of hand. He's keeping everything professional, keeping order. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
because like, no, he needs to be flying the ship. Leave him flying the ship. We need that. It's all well and good him coming down and being with his wife, but then we might all be screwed anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah. So he's ready to do what he's doing. Of course, Mal comes off a bit of a harsh dickhead the way he does it, but
very pragmatic, I think, is maybe the word I'd use.
Yeah, so then we find out some more things about the ship. Life support is down. This is where we find out that the ship's actually, like, they're on borrowed time here, because the life support's not pumping, because the engine is completely gone. And yeah, so this is Kaylee and Mal having this conversation, and he's like, "Hey, like, can you not get it fixed again?" Yada yada yada. And she says at one point here, some things just can't be fixed. Once they get broke, they can't be fixed. And again, this is kind of poking at Mal as a character. We're poking at, can he actually become, a real person again after what he went through in the war? And there's all that stuff we're going to talk about here that goes back to, again, comparing the ship to Mal himself. But and I get to that in a minute, I think. There's a couple of little scenes here just around the infirmary. River and Book have a scene where she's don't be afraid. of suffocating will freeze to death first. It's a really fun. That's why the few moments in the main plot was a good laugh, because it's this really dark bit of humor from her. It's like, yeah, don't worry about suffocating.
Doesn't have any comprehension that she should maybe say that.
So Wash comes down to talk to him, to Mal, that is, and they'll say, "Oh, can you send out a mayday, a signal?" And it's like, yeah, but it won't reach anyone. So we'll boost it. I've boosted it as far as it can go. It won't reach anyone, because one of the key plot points that happens at the start of the party, at the birthday party, at the dinner table, is that Mal has them traveling off the traditional, paths.
Yes, they're going the long way round.
Yeah, they're taking a week to do like what should be a 1-2 day trip, because he wants to avoid any aligned ships. He wants to avoid all the traffic, because obviously it's not so much that no one can just veer from the path, but the idea being that there's these safe paths where there's maintenance things across the way, or there's
they're the safest paths, but they're also presumably the quickest paths. They're probably as close to direct lines as you can get.
I guess the comparison to make from Earth would be like, instead of driving on the highway, you just go down a lot of back roads and go a really long way, but down a lot of back roads around each town.
It's taking the scenic route.
Yeah. But here it's because Mal wants to live off grid. He wants to be, not be seen or heard.
He wants to go live in a hut in the forest.
Essentially. And for me, this is kind of a big thing that sort of hints at what the episode's really about the ship, is the idea that is kind of Mal as a character. The idea that he as a person is something of a loner and doesn't want people around him. And throughout this plot, we see him kind of alienate himself from everyone by the way he, doesn't, he stays strictly the captain. And it's the idea that since the war, he has shut himself off and hasn't had relationships, in a romantic sense. Obviously, there's some chemistry with Anara, but he's not done anything with it, and things like that. And this idea that he wants to fly off the beaten path, it's the same idea here in this episode, that he wants to go down with the ship, that he sees himself as a loner and everyone else needs to be saved but not him, that he sees himself as separate and as someone who's not with a flock, where he always talks about having a crew and you're part of my crew and things like that, but he still sees himself as something that's kind of separate from it. And the story of this episode is ultimately, by the end, that he realizes he does have people and that he has to trust other people.
It's his crew is a possessive, it's a belonging, rather than something he is part of. And at least up until this point. Yeah,
so the idea that the ship, just like him, he wants to stay off the beaten path. He doesn't want to be around other people or a civilization. And the story of this episode is him sort of becoming a part of that again and realizing that he does need that. So,
because obviously the core idea of, if he hadn't decided to go the long way around for kind of no good reason, this would not have been as bad a situation.
They've gotten help fairly quickly, because we find out quite soon that it's a broken part of the engine that's actually a very cheap and easy part to get, but because it's not there, because it's not working, the entire ship's screwed. And he also says something about they have to fight no matter what, and I thought, again, just another bit of his character, this idea that even though he always gives himself the hardest possible route, he will always fight as hard as he can to get through it. It's just kind of who he is. He doesn't give up. He doesn't want to break down and just accept death. It's like, no, we fight no matter what. And it goes back to him as a soldier and what we've seen of him in the war, and everything since. So, and then we get to actually, and as much as I said all the funny stuff comes from the flashbacks, I do have to confess my favourite line of dialogue does come from the present day stuff. It's when Mal and Wash are on the bridge and they're fighting over boosting the signal, and Mal has this idea of this thing that apparently ships, people sometimes do for pranks. It's kind of like a weird thing that'll mess up their comms, but once they unscramble it, they'll get the message, but it will boost the signal. And they're kind of it's already kind of funny by the end of the fight, because Wash's like, well, maybe I should do that then. He kind of still argues but agrees to do it. It's it's a funny little moment.
To go in where you've seen this elsewhere in Whedon shows.
Sure.
This argument between Wash and the captain here is Fitzsimmons.
Sure, as a Fitzsimmons scene. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So they have this great little fight where he agrees to do the thing, but he's still kind of shouting as he says it. Very amusing. But what I love about this scene is Jane, because Jane comes in and says, "You guys, how can you fight at a time like this?" There's a pause. "You're going to use up all the oxygen," and it just walks out.
Yeah, that was a great line.
Maybe my line, in terms of funny lines, and maybe my line of the episode is that line.
It's the deadpan, utter serious delivery of it.
Yeah, because you think he's going to say, no, we have to stick together right now because we're all in this dire situation. No, he's like, no, you're going to support the oxygen because talking takes up more air.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. And then we get flashback number 3. This is Kaylee's flashback, where Mal goes into the engine room to talk to the genius mechanic. And instead of finding him there doing his job, he is having sex with someone. And of course, that someone is very obviously turned to be Kaylee. And he even mentions actually at one point that she loves engines. They get her hot, and whatever.
But that's why they're down here and not in his own room.
Yeah, in his bunk. And, he says, oh, no can do, Cal, I can't fix this thing. Because this other thing's broken. And then Kaylee, who's like still sort of like putting her dress on behind him, is like, no, it ain't.
No, it's not.
Yeah. No, see, look, watch. You just have to connect this to this. This part's not even needed. They just sort of put it in there for show so they'll sell you more parts. You just connect this bit to that and she do, and it's all fixed. And the engine starts, rumbling and turning. And the dude's like, huh? What just happened? And Mal's like, she just fixed it. And then he stands up and is like, hey, you ever been on a ship? Do you wanna? And she's like, oh, you could offer me a job? Like, yeah, I just have to check my folks. Great. And she's all excited. And he's like, hey, what do you need 2 mechanics for? I really don't. It's a great little scene. I think all these introduction scenes do a really good job of like giving you a sense of like just who their characters are in a nutshell as well. Like, in case you hadn't seen the pilot, this may actually give you a lot of like information about who they are in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But it gives you a little bit more. It gives you a little bit of fun if you do already know the characters, I think.
I dread to think where this was aired originally.
This was like the 4th or 5th episode originally.
That's not too bad, actually. All things considered. It's not great.
But there was no pilot.
No, exactly.
So,
but that's why I think this is in the context of that scenario, this is a good one to have early on to give you those markers of who the characters are. Obviously, it's a stupid place to put it in reality because where the end is and then going forward and and where everyone is at the end of it.
Yeah. Because there's been growth with the characters in this, and that growth won't be in the earlier episodes.
Right, exactly. But in that scenario, it's probably better for it to be earlier rather than later. Yeah.
So yeah, Yeah, so we find out that it's about a catalyzer. That's the part they need, the catalyzer. So yeah, and this is where she says when some things get broke, they just can't be fixed. And Mal believes they can. It's kind of Mal's stubbornness, but his hope that things can actually. And it's what makes him a leader, right? It's what makes him a leader when things get tough. And when they have to try and kind of achieve something, say later in the movie, I won't say what it is yet because we're, no spoilers for anything past this point. It's his character in a nutshell. It's like no matter how tough, we have to keep fighting.
Yeah.
So they get this whole plan with the shuttles where it's like, okay, so we got 2 shuttles, and ours one obviously, and then the other one on the other side, and 4 people to each shuttle. There's 9 of them. Mal's staying behind with the ship, and the idea is that they'll go out in opposite directions and they'll try and send out signals from those sides, so they'll cover more ground. And they've got a little bit of their own life support, a little bit of their own supplies, and they'll last a bit longer. And Mal will stay here on his own, and that's the plan. And
then presumably he'll last longer, theoretically, on his own, as opposed to
because there's less there,
because there's less people using the oxygen.
That said, the life support also includes like heating, for example. So it's getting very cold. So there's other problems aside from just the oxygen. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as she said, they'll freeze to death before they suffocate.
Yeah, as she did. Yes. And Anara sort of chases after him. Although before that, it is worth mentioning, Wash sets up a button. He just says he's going to do it. I'll just sort of finish my thought here, though, because he says here, I'm going to make sure there's a way for you to contact us if you do get help, and you can call us back. And this is a great little moment. It's a great little moment just in terms of the line of dialogue, but it's great in the meta context of the show. Because there's this button. I've rigged this button on the bridge here. When your miracle gets here, push it, and we'll come back. And the reason why this is kind of a neat moment just outside the show is because when the show got cancelled, Alan Tudyk stole that from set, that button, before they tore down the set, and he gave it to Joss Whedon and said, when your miracle gets here, push that button. So it's a nice little bit of trivia there.
Did he press it when they announced the movie?
I don't know if there was any sort of public pressing of it, no, but maybe he did.
He should have done if he didn't.
I like to think he did the thing from Ghostbusters when Janine gets the call to get a ghost, and she like slams the button and says, "We got one!" I like to think he did that.
He just got off the phone with the studio and just smacked the button.
He got off the phone with Universal. He's like,
no one else around. He's smacking the button. Yeah.
So, flashback. So she's trying to convince him not to go down with the ship, and this leads us to the flashback of how Anara comes aboard the ship for the first time. And it's an hour haggling. She's looking around the shuttles because he's renting it out to her, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to give this to me for like half my your asking price." Like, "Oh, am I now?" I was like, "Yeah, because I bring a certain credibility, some class to the ship. That'll get you places where you can't go otherwise, and these other things." And she's making a convincing case, and all the rest of it. And obviously, there's a funny line here at the end where he refers to her as a whore at one point, and right at the end of the scene, she says, "And by the way, that is the last time you'll ever call me a whore." And he says, "Absolutely, never again."
Yeah.
Which makes us laugh because he's done it repeatedly in the show up until this point.
All I can picture is the Always Sunny opening after that. It is absolutely never again. Mal calls an hour a whore.
Yes. So it's a really fun scene. It's obviously very different in tone from the others because Anara is such a she's trying to be a stern character in this scene. She's trying to haggle with this ruffian, but this is the first time they essentially met. And then she's like, "You don't have to die alone," and he says, "Everyone dies alone," and that tells you how he thinks about his own life, about how his attitude on humanity and the world right now, or in his case, the galaxy or whatever. But like, when I say the world, I just mean the civilized world. I don't mean a planet.
To him, the verse.
Yeah, the verse. Yes, the verse. Yes, that's what they call it. This is him, his attitude on life, and the idea that everyone dies alone. He's destined to do this because that's all he sees. It's all he thinks that life is. And again, it's him being off the beaten path and so on and so on. So then we get when Miracle gets here, push their spot, and this was the other time I noted on the music because there's a great montage of him going through the ship on his own. He gets a blanket, and he sits at the cockpit, the chair. And he's going through the whole ship, and it's just this sad music's playing as he's on his own. He's been left alone with it, and he's completely and utter. He's shut out his entire family, his crew, as it were, who are essentially in the context of this his family, and he's just doing it his own. And it's worth mentioning throughout the whole episode, because I didn't note this down every time it happened because it's just all these little snippets, but it goes back to Mal in present day, just like crawling towards the infirmary. It's right after we've seen him use the shot that he uses it himself in the present day stuff. Because he's injured, and he gets to the engine room. He puts the part in because he's clearly got a part now. We'll find out where he gets that.
We'll get there, but
Yeah, but no, I like just the contrast because as we get closer to it, it's like, okay, we're putting the pieces in place where now he's alone. Now it's getting cold and desperate, and because it's very different color timing. All the stuff at the start on the ship and the flashbacks,
orange, warm.
Yeah, but he's in a cold, muted tones. Very depressing.
Yeah.
Very good. So he falls asleep and he wakes up, and he almost misses it. He almost misses the person trying to talk because it's sort of cutting in and out. But he wakes up, he catches it, and this big ship's here, and so he's like, they sort of haggle about coming on board and giving him this part, and
and whether or not it's a trap on his part, whether it's all just a ruse to get them on, and they'll jump him as soon as they lock on.
Yeah. And so what happens is, this little touch I liked actually is when they do connect and the cargo door opens, the air from the other ship comes aboard, and like it hits Mal in the face, and he just kind of like has this
fresh oxygen. Yeah,
he just he has this like this deep breath as it hits him. It's really nice.
Yeah.
But of course, this guy is going to immediately pulls a gun out on him as soon as he realizes there's no one else on board. They're going to steal his ship. This is what happens, and this is where it cuts to the Jane flashback number 5. And would you believe it, Jane's flashback is the funniest one. Would we have seen that coming?
I don't think it's possible to predict that.
Yeah, so Zoe and Mal are have their hands up. They're being robbed by 2 random dudes and Jane. Some guy with a beard is the leader. And basically, as they're haggling, or as they're like disputing what they're talking about or whatever, the guy says, "Oh, this one here," Mal cracks a joke about a few of them, and eventually says, Jane's like, "Oh, I'm the one who found you after all." And he's like, "Yeah, you did, didn't you?" And then it becomes this negotiation of like,
he's like, when they get our treasure chest that they're after, what cut are you getting?
7% right off the top, standard. It's like 7.
That seems low to you, Zoe.
Zoe, I'm paying you too much.
Yeah.
Why would she get? Oh no, just but I imagine you get the perks. Get your own bunk, and like you have to share. And then Jane's just like, with that one. There's this little guy who looks really dirty and just kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
The whole thing's just really funny because it's this like because the leader can clearly see what's happening as it's going on. He's like, "No, shut up! Stop talking!" And Jane eventually just shoots him instead. And then obviously Mal punishes his own bunk. You know.
Yeah, and presumably a higher percentage of the profits.
Yes. No, really good.
But I think this works in context of what we've seen before with them is what happens when someone offers you a better deal, because that's all it took here.
Yeah, that's what happened. That's how he became a part of this crew.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So we come full circle because Mal gets shot. We come back to the present day stuff. Mal gets shot, but he manages to pull a gun out from behind. In fact, you know what? I'll give you one complaint. I'll give you one nitpick of this episode because I have one in this scene.
Oh, good.
It's otherwise perfect, but there's one nitpick. Is that Mal pulls this crappy little handgun out from behind one of the devices, and he talks off like 4 guys holding machine guns off the ship, and I'm like, why are they intimidated? Exactly. There's not really a reason for them to feel this pressure to get off the ship from just this one guy.
No, he can take out one of them at best.
Yes. Well, not at best. He can maybe do 2.
I don't know. In the state he's in, with a tiny little pistol like that.
Yeah.
By the time he shoots once, the rest of them will.
I'll give you something you have to take as a leap of logic here, is that he's able to just talk them off the ship with one little gun on his own, with no backup. Right? I'll give you that. After he's been shot. After he's been shot, I'll give you that. It's not like he's got one of them by hostage or something like that. He's just sort of standing across from all of them with his hand up. Like that's all it is. But he does get the part, and they leave. And what I like is after this, after he gets up, is we get a great little montage going through all the places that he's been, as we've seen in these future sections. He's walked through Hurt with the part to get to the engine. Yeah, and we're just sort of seeing the blood in all the places that he's been. So it's this little, and again, it's this idea of like the ship and him being kind of representative of each other, and the blood through the ship.
And he gets the part in.
He gets the part in. He gets it up and running, and he collapses just as he's getting to the button. He's going up to
quite hit it.
Yeah, he collapses just as he's getting there. But he wakes up, and of course the crew's there, and they're all kind of happy. Zoe's awake. She's off on a little cot in the side of the room, and it turns out that Zoe, when she woke up, made the call, being that she's in command with Mal not there, to come home, and called the other shuttle presumably to do the same. And or just hit the button when they get back. If they couldn't call directly, just the first shuttle gets back and they hit the button.
Yeah,
easy enough. And it's this idea that Mal shot them all away, but the only reason why he's alive is because his friends, because his family chose to come back and get him because they care about him. And it's this realization, and it's capped off beautifully with him passing out again. He's very happy, and he says, are you all going to be, he's worried for a second, he just puts his head back up and says, are you all going to be here when I get up? And I think it's Books leans in and says, we're not going anywhere. And he's like, okay, I can go back to sleep then. And he goes and does his job. And it's, of course, as he's waking up here, and of course at the opening scene of the episode, there's little sound bites of one other flashback that we finally get here at the end of the episode, where there's a salesman trying to sell him a ship. And the little reveal in this little final scene here, this final flashback when he falls asleep.
Yeah, he's talking up all these things, classic salesman technique.
Yeah, this ship will be with you till the day you die, and this and that. It's a beauty, blah, blah, blah. And then you finally see this scene, and he's talking about this other big yellow ship, and Mal stops listening to him and just stares across the lot to this, basically the shithole, where probably something that's just been put out for scrap. And
it's the junkyard bit.
He sees Serenity, and he just kind of sighs as if he's in love. And that's the moment. And I think what this moment says to me at the end of the episode is that he did shut himself away from civilization, from the world, from everyone else, and is a bit of a loner. But the one thing he found family in was the ship. That was the one thing he was able to give himself to and sort of take from, was the ship itself. And that's why this scene's so beautiful. This episode's so beautiful to me, is that it's about him finding his family again and realizing that he can be a part of people, and there's genuine growth from him. Probably the most touching growth that any character's had so far in this show. It's a phenomenal little story, and this ending's perfect. This ending is he looks at his ship and sighs with love is beautiful. It's a 10. It's a goddamn 10.
All right.
You're going to argue otherwise? You're going to tell me why it's not?
There's no hard reason why it's not. It's a 9. No, genuinely, there's no reason why it's not a 10. Sometimes it's just sometimes a 10 isn't a 10 because it's objectively better. It's
Sure.
just is, right?
Every time I see this episode, it hits me a little bit harder. I just get a little bit teary-eyed at the end when he wants to.
I get it. It's really good, right? It's like a 9, maybe even a 9.5 if you want to stretch that far. But it's never hit me as a 10.
I love it. It's one. Every time I see it, it just hits me a little bit harder every time. And there's a beautiful story about someone realizing he doesn't have to separate himself from everyone. And I think some of the best stories in general tend to be when it's just about a simple human idea like that. It's just about someone learning to, live again or believe in themselves again or whatever it may be. And this is just a good example of one of those types of story. And it fits beautifully into the show. It's one of these things. I don't like comparing episodes of the show to the movie because I feel like it's a completely different beast. And
it really is.
Yeah. And the movie has all the ending stuff, so it's really hard to compare that to like any individual episode of the show. So I don't like doing it. But as far as the show is concerned, this is my favorite episode, and I think it's phenomenal. So that is Out of Gas. You can of course let us know what you think of the episode in the comments and all that stuff. Next time we have Ariel to talk about, which is also a really good episode actually. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that one.
I don't recall it based on the title, but I'm sure 30 seconds in I'll go, oh, it's this one.
It's a good Jane episode. I'll just say that.
Okay.
It's a good Jane episode.
Yeah.
Let's just say Jane has actual growth as well. There's a lot of growth in this part of the season. A lot of growth. So let us know what you think about Gas in the comments, like and subscribe. If you want to support the show and everything we do here, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. You get these already cancelled episodes a week early as part of that dollar, as well as some bonuses and exclusives for other things. And of course, there is higher tiers, as such as the $10 tier, where you get to sponsor one of our TV reviews, which is what Keith Beard and Margaret Newland do. So do go over and have a look and see if there's anything over there that you want, or if you just want to support us, because every dollar does count and matters a lot. So go and have a look. Otherwise, though, you check out other stuff we're doing. Of course, we do classic Star Trek reviews every week. We're on Next Generation Season 2 right now. We did all the original series. We're on Next Gen. Me and Tara do Twilight Zone every week as well, doing the classic Twilight Zone. So, and other than that, of course, we do a lot of new TV shows as well that are worth looking at. So,
yep, there's always more of that.
There always is. So, that is us. So, thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys, and curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.